All right, hello game design students. I hope everybody is doing very, very well. I am doing this video today, sorry tripping over my words, to show you guys how to create a heads-up display in Construct 3. Okay, a heads-up display, and that's often abbreviated to, maybe not abbreviated, but the acronym for it's HUD, H-U-D, so you might see a HUD. That is the part of any game, and almost every game will have these, where it's the stuff on the screen that doesn't move, so your different graphics. You often see things like a health bar, right, for some of our games, like Minecraft, it has like your inventory on the bottom, your health, I said health bar already, you know, things like Fortnite or Halo's a really common one that was really good when it first came out. That's before you guys were probably even born. But it has like your ammo count and just things like that. Information that a player will need that always stays on the screen no matter where you move. So as your player moves around, or as you move around through a 3D space, which isn't super applicable to these games, that information stays up, and it's a heads-up display, and it kind of simulates, right? That's why Halo was so famous for it, is right, because it's like your guy's wearing a helmet, and that was kind of integrated into the game, and you could see this information, okay? But almost all games have a heads-up display, so we need to learn how to make one. And it's really simple once you kind of get down to it, but we're going to add a few things into this game right here, which is the guided tour, right? So we did this at the beginning of the semester. This is the guided tour. If you didn't save this project, it's pretty easy to just go and recreate it. I honestly didn't have it saved, and I just recreated it in about a minute and a half just clicking through the instructions. So if you haven't done the guided tour and have that saved, you need to have that done. But if you remember, you kind of make this little pig character, you make a few platforms and these tomatoes to collect, okay? So what we are going to do is we're going to create a heads-up display layer that will allow us to track the way the player, how many tomatoes the player collects, right? So we can see that, and then we're gonna have a variable that counts the lives of the players, and we're gonna make it so if the player falls off or exits the layout, right, they'll respawn to this point right here, okay? And then they'll lose their lives. So if they get to 0 lives, the game's over, and we'll kind of program that as well. So the first thing we're gonna do here, right, this layer, we need to rename it the player layer, okay? And that's an important thing. You probably can't even, oh, you can see that over my head on the recording. I don't have my green screen up today. But that's not something you do in the guided tour, but something I want to do here. And the reason why is because we're going to add another layer. Now, this game doesn't have a background layer. In most of our games, we have a background layer and a player layer. In this case, there's no background just because it's a simple kind of intro game. There's just the player layer. Now, on the player layer, we now want to add another sprite to just mark where our player is going to respawn. So let me look at our player sprite here, and the size of it is 36 by 51. Great. Okay, exit. I just wanted to see how big that was. What we're going to do is we're going to add in a sprite and just put it right here next to your player. Okay, and we can we're just going to make this 50 by 50. Okay, the size of our sprite, and you can make it whatever color you want, but we just want to use our paint fill bucket here, and I like green just because it's pretty contrasting, and we're just going to drop that right here. Okay, now we always give our sprites a name, and this one is just going to be spawner, right, or spawn marker, something like that, or even just spawn, I think is fine. And the one thing we're going to change on this is we want to go to properties, and we want to make sure it's not initially visible. So check this box right here so that initially visible is not checked. And then we can just put this kind of even over our player or to the left. It doesn't matter. This is just going to mark where our player spawns. Okay. Now in the guided tour itself, there were 2 behaviors that you added to the player. One is platform and one is scroll to. We're going to add one more here. So let's click behaviors, let's add new behavior, and we're gonna go to this one in general right here that just says destroy outside layout, okay? And what this is gonna do is when our player character leaves the layout, right, basically what it mostly means is when they fall through the bottom, it's gonna destroy the player character, okay? And then that will allow us to trigger an event, which we will do right now. So we're gonna go to our event sheet. Okay, and these are the 3 basic events that you set up in the guided tour, and we're just going to add one more here. Okay, we're going to take our player, and we're going to type here in the search destroy. I mean, you don't have to type it out, you can just type in DES, right? But right here, miscellaneous, on destroyed. Okay, all right, when our player is destroyed, we're going to add an action. We're going to go to our spawn block, and we're going to spawn another object. okay? And the object we're gonna choose is our player, okay? On layer 0 at image point 0, that all works. Let's just go ahead and click done, okay? Now, let's go ahead and test this out. So we have our player, they move, they can collect tomatoes. Let's jump off the side, and you see we've spawned back. And every time, even if we jump off the side, we're gonna spawn right back here at our spawn point, okay? Right, so that makes it so our player continues. It doesn't reset the layout. If we were to reset the layout, then all of the tomatoes we would have collected would also reset, and we don't want that. So that's why we're doing this in this way, okay? So right now, we have the basic functionality of our game. So we're gonna go ahead over here to our layers panel, and we're gonna click this lock on the player layer. And that's very important that you do that, okay? Go ahead and lock the player layer right now. Now we're gonna go ahead and we're going to right click in this empty space, and we're gonna add a layer on top. And I'm gonna go ahead and move my face here so you guys can see just exactly what's in this panel. So we have layer 0 and player layer. And layer 0 is actually layer 1, so we're gonna go ahead and rename this, okay? To HUD, all caps, HUD, remember that stands for heads up display, okay? Now go ahead and click this layer so we can go and look at some of the layer properties, okay? Obviously we want to keep it transparent, right? We want to change one little thing, okay? It's this property right here that says parallax. And right now it's 100% by 100%. We want to change this to 0 by 0. So just 0 space x space 0 and hit enter. And that will automatically format it, right, to be 1000%. I accidentally clicked the transparent button. Make sure that transparent is clicked, because if that's clicked, it'll cover up your other layer. Everything's still there. Just make sure that stays transparent. Okay, whoop. Move my face, not the whole screen. There we go. Okay, so here we are. We have our HUD layer. Okay, right now there's nothing on it, but our parallax is 0 by 0, and it is transparent. Okay, now let's add a couple of things to our HUD layer. So I'm gonna go ahead and double click here in my space. And the first thing I'm going to add is a progress bar, okay? Right, and I can click and I can position this however I want. I'm gonna go ahead and position it in the top left, and I'm gonna call this one player health, okay? Now, we are going to we gotta go down to our properties here, okay? And we're gonna give our value, let's make it, I'm gonna make it 3, okay? And we're gonna make our maximum 3, okay? And what this is saying is our player bar, health bar is gonna be filled, and the maximum is gonna be 3, okay? And we do wanna make sure it's visible. Awesome. Now watch what happens when I just play the game, okay? I now have this health bar, but as I move around the game world here, okay, that health bar, okay, also just moves on my screen. It is now part of the heads-up display, okay? One thing I want to do real quick, I'm going to unlock my player layer for a second, because I like to give my player the double jump. I just kind of like having the double jump, and then I can lock my player layer again. Really important, okay, when you're working on a layer, to make sure to have the other ones locked. So you're not actually adding, especially when we're doing the heads-up display, so you're not adding objects to the wrong layer, okay? But we have our player layer there, all right? The next thing we're gonna do is make sure we're on our HUD layer, okay? We're gonna double click, and we're gonna add in some text, okay? And I'm gonna position this text up in the top right corner, and I need to sort of click and drag, okay, to make this kind of be sort of where I want, okay? So we want it to be kind of a box in the top right corner, okay? We're gonna go over to our properties over here, and we're gonna change a few things, okay? Number one, my horizontal and vertical alignment, I want both of these to be center. And you'll notice when I do that, it moves my little text icon there right to the middle. The size, I can mess with this to be a little bit bigger, okay? So it kind of fills that box just a little bit. And then I want to change my color. I want it to be red, okay? And why? Okay, this text, we're not just leaving this as text. This is going to be our tomato counter, all right? So we have our tomatoes, and we have our tomato counter. It's on our HUD layer, right? Make sure that that's the case. And if we start up our game again, you'll see we have our health bar, and I now have my double jump so I can get all my tomatoes. right? But you'll notice right now, okay, it's not actually counting any tomatoes, and if I jump off the side, it's not actually hurting my health, okay? So we need to add in a little bit of a program to make sure that that happens, okay, to change the program and the health. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do that in the next video. So I'm going to stop this one here, get this one all uploaded to YouTube, and then continue on with the next video so we're not, just so it's not just one big like half-hour long video, okay? But yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.